Olá, você que gosta de esporte para além da competição. Está no ar o PodGEO, uma produção do Grupo de Estudos Olímpicos da USP. Um espaço para falar de olimpismo, da humanidade dos atletas e apresentar as várias facetas das ciências do esporte.
Olá, vocês que nos ouvem, que nos veem, que nos seguem. Estamos aqui para mais um PodGEO, um podcast do Grupo de Estudos Olímpicos da Universidade de São Paulo. E, para variar, estamos aqui com o William Douglas. Obrigada, William, pela presença.
Olá, professora Katia. Olá a todos que nos acompanham.
E hoje nós temos uma convidada para lá de especial, mas é muito especial. Ela é tão especial que ela vem lá do outro lado do Oceano Atlântico. Estamos aqui com a professora Annette Hofmann. Boa tarde, Annette.
Hello, everyone. And I have to apologize. I cannot speak Portuguese, but thank you for having me here today.
E não tem problema, porque, como vocês podem ver, as falas da professora Annette Hofmann seguem com legenda em português. Annette é atualmente a vice-presidente da International Council for Sports Science and Physical Education. E ela já foi mais do que uma vez presidente da International Society for the History of Physical Education and Sports. Annette está no Brasil participando do Congresso da Sociedade Internacional de História do Esporte, que aconteceu entre os dias... Me ajuda, William, semana passada?
Isso, na primeira semana de setembro foi realizado em Curitiba.
Em 2024, pela Universidade Federal do Paraná. E é um pouco sobre os resultados deste congresso e tudo aquilo que o International Council of Sports Science and Physical Education vem fazendo, que nós vamos conversar com a professora Annette Hofmann.
Ok. Let's start, Professor Annette.
Yes.
Please tell us how was your speaking in the Congress in Curitiba?
Well, I have to say this was a very nice conference. It was a 3-day conference, and we had people from, I think, 17 countries. Most of them came from Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, but then we had people from the United States, Canada, some from different European countries. It was a very intense congress because we had times for our sessions and workshops, but we also had a lot of times to talk in the coffee breaks, or we did make a trip in the end. So it was very nice to meet the people. The hospitality was great, so friendly. Everyone was helping if we needed help, because most of us foreigners couldn't understand the language. It was great, but also academically. We had, as I said, 17 different countries, and each of the participants concentrates on a different topic in their research. So it was widely spread. We had Olympic topics, we had soccer, was very interesting. We had biographical approaches on sports people, or sport politicians, or we also had gender was a topic, women in sport especially, and then we also had different types of gymnastics, where the origin of gymnastics in sports comes from. So we have German gymnastics, we have Swedish gymnastics, or we have English sports. So some people concentrated on this, or sometimes we had comparisons between two countries. So it was a really broad, a variety of topics.
Okay. Professor Annette, can you see some difference between the topics in Europe Congress and in the South America Congress, like an example, or not? They walk in the same direction?
I think it's very similar. Here it was more in South America, on the various countries, Uruguay, Brazil, and Argentina. But the main topic is, I would say, is the same. Whether you talk about gender in Brazil or gender in Europe, or soccer in Brazil, soccer in Europe, it's just a different country, but the overall topics I would say it's the same, and we also use similar approaches to it. Yeah, some people have some theoretical background, such as Foucault, and it's here and there. Bourdieu, yeah. In history, we're not so much in it, but we still touch these philosophers or sociologists. But and I think it's globally now. Yeah, maybe it's not so much. We also have some Asian participants. That's a little bit more different. Yeah, but I think Brazil. The research here is very much alike. Yeah, maybe there's an influence between both continents.
And Professor, how these topics could contribute to the develop the sports in the world? Because I think in general we have specific topics in the local culture, but I think there is global topics in sports and physical education.
Yeah, for me, one of the global topics is gender. Yeah, and it's really, if you see how, let's put gender just as men and women. We know there are more genders, but let's just make it simple. You can really see how women's sport developed over the centuries, and it's a bit different in various countries. Some countries are more resistant to take up women's sports, some are not. But then it's also, for instance, there was a discussion. It wasn't even the paper that was given, but one discussion was about women's soccer today and how it's played differently in different countries. One person said, here in Brazil, the female players want to be like the male players, and it's a very, let's say, aggressive sport with a lot of body contact. And she said, but female soccer players in Argentina, they see it differently. They say they're feminist and they want to have a different kind of game with less fouls and less aggressivity. Yeah. So, and then we started a discussion here. How is it in each country with the women's soccer? And we even talked about we could have a research project here to compare this. And this was really interesting. This intercultural differences with the same sport. And how could it contribute? It's a global discussion then, yeah.
And it's important to look gender. It's not just a biological discussion.
Yeah.
We have a historical discussion about gender too. It's not just a biological topic. We saw in the last Olympic Games many discussions about gender, about men boxer athletes, but just biological, not historical or social discussions.
And it was also the transgender topic. It was at the Paralympics, was one runner who used to be a man, I think now she's a woman. And we had at the Olympics was about the Taiwanese boxer, where she's considered a woman. And this was also a discussion here at the conference to what expect. We should open our sports more and to be more open but there are always two sides to the coin. Yeah, it's what we as a society, how we interpret it, but the competitors, like if you play with a transgender person on this, if you compete against a transgender person, maybe you have a different opinion. Yeah, maybe the IOC says no, it's okay. A transgender person can participate, but the competitors, they see it often differently. And when a transgender person is not successful, then it's all okay. But once it's usually she wins, then all of a sudden the media and everyone, then the problem starts. Yes. Yeah, only if they are successful. If they're not successful, it's fine, can compete. Yeah,
there is space for all losers.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I think it's important to have these topics, to also show the general, not just in the conferences, but because we also go out and to the public, so the public thinks about it more. Maybe some people don't even know about it, but once you have these cases and once you discuss them in publicity, and you can have maybe some scientific finding and arguments for doing it this way or that way, this helps society a lot.
And Annette, another sensible topic is about immigrants, because there are many immigrants and refugees nowadays around the world, and we know how the sports can help these people in this terrible situation. Did you discuss this?
No, it was not discussed there. I can only talk about a project I did at my university.
Okay.
We have a refugee home next to my university, and I think it was before the pandemic. So I said, let's try to have a class where we integrate the refugees. And so we tried once a week. We picked them up. And we knocked at every door, the students did, and tried, would you like to play sports with us this afternoon? And then we had it for like 15 weeks, each summer, and we did various sports together in the afternoon. And some communication started. We had a little party at the last date and so on. And I think with sports, often there's no language. Everyone knows how to play it. The only problem that we had, I said, don't play soccer, do other sports. So we have more communication, and sometimes soccer, most of the refugees are male. Actually, those who came were male. We wanted to have the females as well, but they always said, no, I have to stay home, I have to take care of the children and so on. So we tried to avoid to play soccer, but in the end, we always played soccer. We started with frisbee or some other activities, but second half we ended with soccer.
And it's so important because these themes, these topics, it's not about the right level of sports. It's about the sports for all the people.
Exactly.
The right in the
Yeah. William did his PhD about refugees and immigrants.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes, the immigrants who came to Brazil and to introduce some modalities in Brazil. And it's important for the people look into this and can see, this sport starts in Brazil because of the migrants. Sailing in Brazil starts because the German. Judo in Brazil because the Japanese people. And nowadays we have some difficulty to integrate the migrants because we can see this and it's part of history.
Yeah. And we have now cricket. No one plays cricket, but Pakistani immigrants brought cricket. Now it's starting too, So, and maybe it will grow, but it was the refugees who brought it over,
I think refugees affirm the mind of Pierre de Coubertin that sports like a language.
Yes, but what we found out, it's very hard to get the female refugees. The refugees coming to Germany, many of them have a Muslim background, and for them, they don't have the sporting experience that we have. Some never had physical education or were in a sports club or so, and we also try to get the women. And if they don't know, they're always saying, what are you doing there? And why are you doing this? And they don't really sometimes know. It's for the fun of it, And once, it was many years ago, I had a refugee woman saying, why do you always want to impose your sports on us? Maybe we want something different. And we always think, let's try it with sports and invite everyone, But maybe we should also ask them, what do you want? For the men, it's easy with the sports, but the women,
Professor, why is it important to think in sports like public politics? Not just, sports, okay, sports will be. Like in the biggest things, in a country politic, in a state politic, why it's necessary to think in sports like in big politics?
Well, this is, everyone, you also see at the Olympics the medal count, Every country wants to be the best. And the German government, for instance, always wants us to be number 6 or 7 or 5, but we're not. We are really bad in Germany. We were number 10 or 11. And then the countries always think if they're good in sports, they're strong, they're powerful, and they want to show everyone in international sports or the nations how powerful we are because we're good in sports. For me, it's not so important. I think the money that is put into elite sports, maybe you should put it more into sports for all to have a healthy society, It's always nice to see competitions on a high level. And I also like the Olympics or World Championships. But then I think, how important is it? It's important for the people who like to play and we want to see it. But it's more important to have a healthy society. And I know the Scandinavians, for instance, they put much more of the money to the whole society to reduce obesity and the sedentary lifestyle. So maybe we all should think a little bit differently here. But for the politicians, first of all, they can go there and show they're supporting the sports, and they're close to the athletes and whatever. And when we're winning, it's always great because we're a strong country. But for me, I would do it a little bit different.
Maybe this is a bad legacy from Cold War.
Yeah, but it was before already. If you look at the 1936 Olympic Games, Hitler wasn't fond of getting the games because he only thought nationalistic. He didn't like anything that's international. But then he said, it's an opportunity. I can show how strong Germany is, that we are the most successful country in the world, And then he tried, they put a lot of money into the athletes years before so they would win and so on to show the power of the country. So it started before the Cold War, but during the Cold War it was getting even more important, And it's a leftover that's continuing. And now, this year we didn't have Russia, and by Russia, but China, for instance, they have such many, received so many medals, and you say they think they're successful, a powerful country.
And let's talk about a little bit from Paralympic Games or Paralympic athletes. Did you discuss about this topic in the conference?
No, we didn't take it up, but I was there. Actually, it was
you
last
was
year.
Really? Oh, yes. She gave me a gift from there.
It's only a 3-hour train ride from my home. So I decided, because the Olympics are very expensive to get tickets, and it's crowded, and it's hard to get accommodation. So I said, as I did in Rio, I went to the Paralympics. These are sports you don't see every day. You hardly ever see them during the Paralympic Games. They are also on TV, but it's so great to see these athletes with special needs and handicaps. You see people with no arms swimming, or only with some fingers here at their shoulders. But they're so fast. They're faster than I am, And it's incredible what they do. And for me, it's even more interesting to watch Paralympic competitions than the other the abled body athletes competitions, And they have a lot of the same issues. There's the doping issue, although this year I didn't hear anything about it, but there probably was. There's gender. For the first time now, they had 45% female athletes. It used to be much less. But now they're also trying to get more female athletes. By the way, the Olympics was parity, 50-50, men and women. So, but in general, them a lot of the same aspects and so on,
And in Brazil, the Paralympic movement is growing in the last years. Brazil was in the medal table in the top 5, but we need to remember Russia is a potence in Paralympic and was out of Paralympics too. And the case of Russia is curious too, because the first suspension of Russia started with doping topics. And now is the war or it's not the war, the suspension of Russia? How the Russia topics can see by the academic view? about the point of view of the athletes. The Russian athletes can compete. Some athletes can compete in individual sports, but in collective sports, no. And
it's a really hard topic, and this was discussed at the conference. We had a panel discussion on critical perspectives on the Paris Games, and we also took up the Russian exclusion and Belarusians and so on. If you look at the Olympic Charter, I think everyone should participate, really. But it really needs to discuss if there's a country that starts a war, whether we want to have these people. And I can only say that at our panel discussion, there was one participant, she said that many more countries should not participate. They talked about Israel, although in Palestine, and one also said, well, the Americans, North Americans, United States, they also started a lot of wars, and they were always part of the Olympics. And there was a discussion going on back and forth, and it's so hard to find the right answer here. I don't think there's a right or a wrong, because if you think about the idea of the Olympics, and I know Katia knows more about it, I think maybe they should have participated. And it's a way where you still communicate between the athletes, at least. Although I know each country wants to show how strong they are, but the athletes, if they're allowed to talk to each other, there's still a communication.
Yes, and it's incredible how athletes and politics mix it in this situation, but not in the others.
Yeah, exactly. And sports is unique here.
Yeah.
And you see when you hug each other and so on and so on. It's the politicians that change everything, And I know they're all controlled by politicians, the Russians and so on, and the Chinese. But still there's always a little way maybe where athletes can find each other, talk to each other, exchange thoughts. And I'm not sure whether this is when the Olympics will include everyone again. We have so many wars going on now. It's the second time that Russia couldn't compete, and for us it's good. We win more medals, but that's not the Olympic idea.
And the next Olympic Games will be in USA.
So maybe they will not come at all. Maybe the Chinese will not come. We don't know.
How the idea to about the future.
And we discussed too, maybe we have to rethink the Olympics to find a totally new way to organize them. There was no solution, but in a neutral country, always the same country, we don't know, but this was a little bit discussed at the conference. How could we change the Olympics? First of all, for the sustainability, not only for the pollution. Then one idea was to have Olympics like the Tokyo Olympics with no audience. I don't like the idea, because I think it also brings the visitors, the audience together from all countries, because they all meet, have parties and talk to each other. But this way less energy would be spent, less traveling. But that's not the idea, I think. But it was mentioned, and then maybe always the same place in a neutral state, and so on, so on. I don't know.
I think the sport is a public phenomenon. So it's impossible to think, yes, you have competition, but there is no audience to participate, because the audience participate on the competition.
You also you have your fans and you hear the noises. Then the lady said, "Oh well, you can put in artificial noises, like they did in Tokyo, but it's not the same. No. The athlete feels it, who's there, and how they're cheating, or booing.
Sometimes athletes call audience to participate.
Or if when they clap their hands.
So cool.
Annette, you participate on German Olympic Academy. I'm curious to know, how is the work? How is your job? How the academic there participate on the development of Olympics.
Actually, the day I arrive, the day after tomorrow, I have a meeting there. I land and go from the airplane to the German Olympic Academy. So I hope the plane will not be late or cancelled. I have a lot of positions in German international sports, but that's, I would say, my favorite one. The German Olympic Academy has a lot. We do a lot, I think. We produce every 4 years or every 2 years material for schools on Olympic education. So what can teachers do or schools do during the weeks before the Olympics? And you could say, okay, we could always have the same program, but but we always have a relation to the hosting country of the Olympic Games. Yeah, so there's a little bit of culture and history of that host country included, or then you also athletes are introduced that will participate for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So we have this, what we produce every 2 years together with teachers. Then we organize a youth camp during the Olympics. So we choose, I don't know the amount, maybe 20 youth, young people under 18 that go to the Olympics. And they look at different events, and we go with them. But before we also have little lessons or programs for them, so they know a bit more about Olympic history, Olympism, and so on. And this year in Paris, we did it together with a French youth camp. So the first time that we did this, so we also had some transnational or intercultural relations. And I hope we will continue this to do it with the hosting country. Then we also sometimes we have some publications, or we do have a fair play prize of German sports, who are the fairest athletes in a year. So we also give them a prize, and which is in a castle in a very nice location. So we do different things here, and it's great. It's nice.
And can I ask you 2 years because the Winter Olympic Games and the Summer Olympic Games, or not?
Yes, both. Yeah.
Yes, because in Brazil,
it's usually it's 4, but with the winter and summer,
We have not the culture of Winter Olympic Games. We have some athletes, but it's not a culture from Brazil to think in Winter Olympic Games.
Yeah, no, we have to think in both. So it's always hard to say 4 years. It's 2 and 2 or 4 for each.
Annette, after we talk about a project with African countries, and I would like to know that you talk about a little bit about this project, please.
This is from a different organization. It's from the International Council of Physical Education and Sports Science, where I'm the vice president, and we try to do projects. Sometimes it's a research project, sometimes it's a more practical project, and we got some grants from UNESCO. And we got together with a couple of African countries. It was Namibia, Zambia, and South Africa. And we had over several weeks, we had a workshop with some, I would say, senior professors, something, and young researchers or younger people, not only researchers, but from practical sports too. And we were producing a toolkit how to organize grassroots sports event in African countries, or at least in these 3 countries that worked with us. And actually, the young researchers and practitioners, they produced it. We gave them the advice, we older ones or the more experienced ones. And we have a really like a 30-page toolkit, and where it's not just what contents you can do, but also the logistics. If you do a little sports event somewhere, and what do you have to do? You need the media, you need the facilities, you need food, and so on and so on. So we put down all these topics as a support for people who have less experience. And this was the African project, and I know from Namibia they use it a lot. They go out to rural communities, and then they try to organize something there. That's the partner from Namibia. They are really active in it. And now we applied for a follow-up project, but we'll still waiting whether we get the funds or not.
I think it's that.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your contribution with us. It's really important your presence here because podcast, GEO podcast, is an opportunity to make the divulgation about academic production and physical education and sports.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. E obrigado a quem nos acompanhou, quem nos acompanha no PodGEO.
É isso aí. Esse é mais um episódio da nossa série do podcast GEO. E em breve teremos mais novidades com outros convidados nacionais e internacionais. Obrigada, William, pela presença, pela colaboração, pela parceria de sempre. Obrigada, Rovilson, que está aqui no backstage com a gente. E com a Lutonon fazendo a nossa edição. Até a próxima.